Hello everyone, my name is Johnny5 and welcome to my new YouTube series. With these videos I'm going to be interviewing the biggest and or best of each class and spec so that these players can give feedback for PA to possibly hear, gameplay mechanics for those unfamiliar, tips and tricks for players trying to learn the class, or for somebody who's looking to pick up a new class and might want to know more about it without fully investing the time and effort needed to roll to it. This series will be very chill, with the conversation being the main point, and I'll include some background footage of the classes as I can. But if you would like to do something else while listening, like grind, play another game, or listen at work, this would be a great series for that. So with that said, let's jump right into it. I'll go ahead and start. So I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself as you'd like. I believe you're in APOC right now?
I'm in Vertex.
Vertex right now. Okay. I remember seeing you at Siege a while back when we held Valencia, so I wasn't quite sure.
I did merc into APOC a little bit a couple months ago, but
Okay.
I've been in Vertex for a while now.
Okay. Have you always been in Vertex, or you been? Oh, you said you've been there just for a little bit now.
Well, I've been in Vertex for 2 years, I think. Since I came back to the game, this most recent time, which was it's been 3 years now, because I came back and switched over to Vertex a little bit past the um pandemic, when after I got furloughed, and was spending a lot of time at home and just playing the game more. But before that, I was in Cotton for a little bit, directly when I came back, or when I started playing the game again, really often. But then I went to Vertex. So yeah, it's been like 2 or 3 years.
Okay, so definitely a good amount of experience under your belt with some good guilds.
Yes, yeah, and I've been playing the game since its release back in 2016. So I've been playing overall for 7 years. So
For 7
I have
years.
a lot of I've had a lot of experience with BDO.
Yeah, sometimes when I talk to you guys, I feel like a BDO zoomer of senses. I started March of COVID, so March of 21, I guess that would put me at. It was my first Nodewar.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, cool.
um, with that, just kind of jumping into some of the questions. I know some of these, but I'm going to be asking some of these just for people who are newer to the game or are unfamiliar with classes. So for experienced players, these are some of them going to be very obvious. But is Shai mouse movement dependent? Do you have to use mouse movement at all? I think there used to be a tech where you could walk with bongos in some sense, but I don't know how much that's used.
So Shai does not depend on mouse movement. There are a couple skills that can take advantage of it, but it's not necessary. Like personally, I do not use mouse movement at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um, as far as like moving with bongos, that's actually a skill called I think it's We're Gonna Win. It's the newest skill that lasts for 10 minutes. That also has heavily differing opinions on it, on the effectiveness of it. I personally don't use it at all, but I know there are a few Shais that use it religiously and make really good use of it. So
Um, All right. And then next, is Shy very gear dependent? I do know that a lot of people tend to go DP meme with the Shy, where you basically just stack as much evasion and DR for those unfamiliar with it to just become tanky, and you can then bongo safely, survive better in ball fights since you're usually less of a DPS based class. But is it something that if you try to get into uncapped content at 670, 680 gear score with a standard AP build, were you going to kind of suffer from that? Is it very viable in capped content as well? Because the gears all, I mean, obviously capped, there is no DP meme. What's your thoughts on the gear dependency of the class?
so for PvP specifically, yes, it is very gear dependent. Like you said, for uncapped fights, it's basically essential that the Shy goes full DP, just because we have such bad PvP modifiers, damage modifiers against other classes, as well as we are pretty unprotected in our attacks overall. And so there are some instances where going full AP in uncapped situations can work, but it's mostly small, like very small scale stuff, or if you're doing open world um, fighting. Otherwise, in large scale uncapped, it's not feasible, not really. As far as capped fights, it can you can do Shai in capped fights and make it work. It's difficult, but it is definitely possible. Just because with the all of the stats being so much lower than in uncapped gear, we are able to sort of get around the PvP damage modifiers a little bit. But again, it takes a lot more aggressive play and a lot more preparation in order to do that effectively.
Okay. If somebody is wanting to start to get into PvP and they're very new to the game, very beginner, and they wanted to possibly try out Shy, is this a class that you would recommend to new players for PvP and PvE?
For PvE, I would say yes, but again, that just might be my own bias just because I really enjoy the playstyle of Shy. Um, and Shy does have a lot of survivability in PvE content just because of uh, if you put an HP on hit on one or two of our skills, you will basically never die just because we have so many hits on our skills. And so it's very easy to recover any damage that we receive. Um, for PvP, I would say it's difficult to get into just because you have to have two different gear sets, one for PvE and one for PvP. And so you're basically double gearing yourself and spending a lot more funds trying to reach that same level of uh, gear preparedness that other classes don't need to worry about. Um, Now, that's not to say that it's not possible. Or, I mean, you can even just go into like tier one or tier two wars and do pretty okay with um, the lower amounts of gear. Like I said, it is possible to do that, but um, in uncapped fights, you definitely need to have a lot of prepared gear and get up that DP set.
All right. With the beginner friendliness of it, you're saying that it has a gear dependency for the uncapped fights. If somebody were to either start their PvP experience what very geared, they were a life skiller or a PvE grinder for a long time, or
Hmm.
possibly reroll, or I guess rerolling would not be beginner anymore. But they might want to climb the ladder and start in a T1 guild or in a T2 guild. Do you think, from a mechanical standpoint of the movement, combos, playing the class in Nodewar, it's something that is very possible for a beginner to succeed at? Obviously, with it not being a class where your main goal is to frag, but your main goal is to support your team with heals and buffs and CCs and the like.
Hmm.
You play a little bit of a different role, and it won't be as shown on the war scoreboard. Unfortunately, I would love to have heals and CCs on there. Do you
Yeah,
think that's something that's more beginner friendly in that kind of a take?
yeah. If you play the full support role, that is very possible to do. I've known other shy players that play almost fully backline buffing and healing and protecting the flank with using the Force Echo, which is our main bongo skill. That's a big stiffness bubble around us. Um, so you can definitely do that. It is definitely possible to play that style. I don't mind not getting a lot of kills or any kills at all, and being able to basically bolster the rest of your team so that they can deal out as much damage as possible and survive for as long as possible.
Awesome. And then next is the class hard on the hands for PvE and PvP. The joke with some classes is that if you play them long enough, you're going to get arthritis really quick. Is that the case with Shy? Is it something that you can, after a long night of work, kind of mellow out and play very casually, very relaxed while grinding, or take a more relaxed approach in terms of mechanical intensity when it comes to PvP? Or is it something where you're 500 APM a minute or anywhere between?
Thankfully, Shy is pretty easy on the hands. especially if you are mainly just doing like the bongo, like Force Echo, you literally just hold down Shift F and then you can just sit there and it's a permanent SA for us, and then it's a huge stiffness bubble around us. And so if you're just locking down like a specific spot, it's super easy. Um, buffing and buffing your allies again, that's also pretty easy. There are a couple different ways that you can, a couple different like keybind combos that you can do to make that very simple. But no, it's not 500 APM or anything like that. Nowhere near like Ninja is or something like that. It's not as easy as like Guardian might be, since all of their skills are pretty slow moving, so you don't have to worry about like doing really fast key inputs, but it's not crazy.
Okay. And then was Shai your first class that you mained or became proficient at when you started playing BDO? I guess you
Uh,
said you returned, so you would have played before Shai came out.
yes. So I've been playing on and off for 7 years. So when BDO was first released, Shai was not even in the game. I initially started with Wizard, and then went into Awakening Wizard when the Awakening stance became a thing. Um, and I did that for like 3 years or so. And then I took about a 6 month to a year break or something like that, due to schooling, um, and having to take some time off and other real
Life
life stuff.
events. Yeah.
Yeah. But then I came back just before Shy came out. Um, and then Shy was announced in Korea. I found it very exciting, and I really liked that aesthetic. And when it came to uh, the North American and European servers, I switched and have not looked back since. I've really only ever truly made 2 classes, sort of 3, since I gave Succession Nova a good go when that originally was released, but since I came out, that has been my main class.
All right. And when that class did come out, or when they dropped the trailer gameplay in Korea, what was it that made you stick on the class, or when you started playing the class, make you decide, "Yep, this is what I am enjoying. This is what I like to do. This is the class I will be playing from here on."
So I have always really enjoyed playing support style roles and classes, as well as like um, bard style classes, and so the Shy ended up being like pretty solid mix between the two. And on top of that, I really liked how the flooring main hand PvE grind was, and it's just, I don't know. Outside of that, it's just really fit my kind of playstyle, I guess, the kind that I really enjoy.
Okay. Um, all right, and then with that, I'm going to move on to kind of game scenarios, different areas you might see Shy to just get a more in depth per event or activity. To start, the big thing a lot of people are wondering about is Shy good at Node Wars, capped and uncapped. I don't know how much capped you've done recently. I assume at least some T3s. Have you done any T2s or T1s since the changes?
Yes, so I've done many tier 2s, tier 3s, and quite a few tier 4s as well since the changes. Um, Shy is good in all 3 scenarios, but they play a very different role than other classes do. Um, Especially for uncapped fights, so tier 4 wars as well as the uncapped siege. You are definitely playing full DP build, so basically just stacking as much evasion as physically possible. You are playing full support, disruption, distraction, and locking down positions in the field for your allies and against your enemies. For capped fights, you are doing more backline support and healing, and playing more of a flanking role rather than up in the main ball, just because we don't have the offensive protection that other classes might have, nor do we have the DP protection that we would need in order to position for like doing heavy lockdown fights. So you're mainly doing more protecting your flank against the ones or twos that are trying to get around and hit the back line, that kind of thing. It is definitely possible. Most tier twos and tier three fights, I'm usually getting 20 to 30 kills a war nowadays, as if it's lasting more than like 15, 20 minutes. Um, it's just you're not. I mean, obviously, you're not going to get as many kills as other players, but it is still definitely possible to do.
Definitely possible. Is that on T2s? You said that you get that many kills?
Tier twos and tier threes, yeah.
Wow.
No, I mean, I'm also running full elixir set.
Oh, okay.
When, or at least most of the time, I've started running giants a little bit just because elixirs are stupid expensive and you're
Expensive? Yeah.
chugging them down every time that you die. But yeah, actually getting between 20 and 30 kills most fights.
Are you
But I
running
also play a very aggressive style of
Shai?
shot. Yeah.
Are you running the damage elixirs or are you running the pure tank elixirs? I believe you can only run so many, and I do know that some Shais don't run like the truffle mushroom crit damage ones. Are you running those when you do that?
I am. So I got really lucky early on when Lens Valley and Odalita originally was released, and purchased a lot of detection elixirs and was and basically stocked up on a lot of elixirs early on. So I have a decent store of those, and I also have a permanent pre-order on all three or all of the detection elixirs on the central market. And so every now and then I'll get um, pre-orders from that. Like even yesterday, I got a fresh 500 green elixir solos. So,
All right. If
but
you had, oh, go ahead.
sorry, yeah. So, yeah. If I'm not running the full elixirs, I am running giants drafts, just because they give the most benefit for those caps. Because obviously, once you go over the AP limit, it's better to get the percentage damage bonuses rather than the flat.
All right. And then with Shy in Node Wars specifically, because I'll ask this for each of the types of combat or types of gameplay, what would you like to see either removed from the class to help balance it, or given to the class to help it perform its job better? The goal or aim with this isn't to obviously make the class broken. You know, if you made the
Hmm.
boomerang skills perma SA and one shot people, that's not helpful. But if to make it
Yeah.
balanced or to fill the role that it needs to, what would you take away or give the class, or a mix of both as well? If you find something to be a little bit too overpowered or too strong and you need to dial it back or take it away and give it something else instead, what would you like seeing changed to the class to help the health of the game and to see it succeed as well?
So this question has a lot of differing opinions depending on who you ask,
Mm-hmm.
even within our class or outside of the class, and talking to other players. Um, for shies that enjoy playing the full support role, what we really need is a better class passive. I mean, we don't have any um, fighting passive available to us right now. We have a life skilling passive that essentially does nothing. Um, and like even in life scaling, it does it's bonus combat experience from gathering and alchemy. It's like 300% bonus experience, but past level like 50, that's like 0.01% bonus every time that you do something. It's basically non-useful, not useful at all. Um, so yeah, realistically, if we're just talking about like uncapped and being full support or disruption, distraction, etc., a evasion or DR passive would be massive. That would put us in a much better position, especially with how the game has progressed to the point where other classes have so much accuracy, so much evasion shred that even in full evasion DD gear, we're still able to just get totally shredded by like two people if they're um if they
Early
have
geared.
those evasion shred. Yeah, so yeah, an evasion passive would be fantastic. Now those that want to play a more role and want to be able to do damage and go full AP, being able just to have better PvP damage modifiers would be great, as well as being a little bit more protected in our um, attacking skills. Realistically, we don't have a fully protected attack combo, um, and our most frequently used skill is completely unprotected. So we've been asking and have asked many times about some form of like a possible succession stance for Shai where we get rid of all of our support capabilities and then be able to do damage with our flooring. But we've had absolutely no luck up to this point. I mean, even in the last ball, that had been brought up, but they said nay to that idea because they don't want to change the way the Shy class feels or the specialness of the class, whatever. So we'll keep asking for it, but prospects don't look good. Then, as far as other people's opinions, other classes' opinions, uh, people have the issue with the high resistance buff that we're able to give with our support. Um, Personally, I don't feel that that's too big of an issue. They've had resistance in the game forever. I highly doubt they're ever going to remove it. That's one of the benefits of playing with the Shy is being able to have those extraordinary group buffs. That's just my opinion, though. So, um, I'm personally I fall into the oh shoot, I can't remember the word. I've uh I fall into the opinion of being able to have either going full support or going the full offensive. So having like
A
the
duality to the
succession,
class.
yeah, the duality to the class rather than being locked into only being able to play this one way and being successful that. I mean, up to this point, Shine mains have already gone against the grain in terms of how PA wanted the class to be. So we're always fighting tooth and nail to try and get on equal balance with other people, with other classes.
All right, and that sounds kind of fair. I would like to be able to switch up play styles if I was locked into just one as well. So I understand
Mm-hmm.
that. Is Shy currently in a place where it is viable at the top end? Just for our newer audiences or those who have not necessarily done or looked at PvP in the higher end, in guilds like Cho, Corrupt, Ventus, Clash, Digi, etc., is Shy a class that they will happily take to war and a class that you can get into these guilds with? And if so, go ahead and kind of explain why if you could.
Absolutely, yes. When you have the full DP gear and you're doing unkept wars, or even if you have a high gear rate for the tier twos and tier threes, and are fighting in these wars regularly, our support capabilities make a big difference in terms of the capabilities of our allies. So just being able to go around buffing them with 1500 more HP for 60 seconds, increasing the speed for everyone's attacks by 25% for 60 seconds. Like all of our buffs last 60 seconds and are replayable every 10 seconds. And so we're able to maintain our support constantly if you're focusing on that. So yeah, our buffs are massive, and it can make or break a fight. Honestly, like there are been quite a few scenarios where having a Shy there instead of one other player has turned the tide of fights, and I've experienced that myself. I've seen that happen um, in other fights as well. Like Shy is a wanted class, but not a class that you want a lot of. You still want to have the the uh, the offensive fighters like the strikers, the the wizards, the berserkers, etc., etc. But there will always be a place for a handful of Shais in every guild.
All right. Um, awesome. Any last notes or anything you'd like to kind of say for Shai and Node Wars in particular? Otherwise, I was gonna move on to AOS next.
Um, no, I think that pretty much covers it for Node Wars and
Node Wars.
sieges and stuff.
All right. And then AOS. So in AOS, what kind of a role do you play? I assume, especially with the class not having the duality you talked about with the Node Wars, that you play a support-based class or a support-based role. Is that true? Is it an enjoyable experience in AOS?
Uh, yes, we do play a support role similar to how we do with uncapped fights for large scale, but it's a different style of it because you have to be a little bit more aggressive. You have to be able to basically lock down one or two players while your teammates are able to make use of that time and defeat the other lone person or etc. like that. It is possible and it is fun unless you fight a class that you have no hope of locking down, in which case it's just misery. And in my personal experience, at least from the first season of Arena of Solare to the second one, fighting as a Shai is pretty much a 50-50 chance that you're going to win. There's no like, it all comes down to the comp that you're with and the comp that you're against. So like, for instance, so once this latest season began with the new gear and the new crystals, I was doing fantastic up until Megu came out. And Megu came out, and there was no hope for me after that. Basically, Megu's ruined it. At least personally for me, I was not able to recover at all, and then I couldn't play the last couple weeks just due to in real life stuff. But um, I know that there are Shais that were able to make it through and make it above the make it into top 10. I think there was one Shai this season in North America that made it top 10 or top 100. I mean, and I know other regions had a lot more success with Shai, but I know specifically in NA we had a massive influx of Megu players, and when you're fighting against one or two Megus, 80% of the fights uh, doesn't go over too well because we just can't lock them down.
Okay. And then um with an AOS as well, and if it's the same as Node Wars that kind of carries over, what would you like to see done to Shai that would help it perform in AOS? Since it sounds like it's lacking a little bit, this may be something. Do you think it's more of a other class needs changed, or do you think Shai needs something to make up for what's kind of going on in AOS?
If Shai is set to remain as the support role class forever, as it is now, um, an evasion passive would be massive and bring us up to the same level of capability as other classes, as well as some form of class, not discrepancy, but um, class balance in terms of not having the same class as two of the fighters. And yeah, like on the same team, I mean. Just because, like, Megus, I mean, were the bane of many people this season. Sages too, to a lesser degree, at least in my opinion. But yeah, being forced to fight against Megus so much, at least in my experience, they ruined this season for me. Um, yeah.
From what I heard from several people, and just from what I experienced in AOS, I didn't play a lot this season. I was busy with other things. The Megu train definitely seemed to ruin the experience for a lot of people. So hopefully with the next season of AOS, they will do a little bit of changes with some of the items, looking at the BSR earrings, and possibly do some more changes to classes like Sage and Megu, which play very, very well against evasion classes, and just a lot of classes in general. It may be a different experience for Shai, especially since you said it was a lot better early on, pre Megu release. So
Yeah.
that's good. Would you recommend, assuming that these two changes happen with Megu and Sage, would you recommend or do you suggest Shai as a good or all right class in AOS?
That's debatable. Shy is still a tough class to play in AOS. You really have to know the class in order to make it work well, because and you also have to have teammates that play with you. I know in NA a lot of at least the middling and lower rankings isn't a whole lot of team play that goes on. You need to really be able to break through and get into the upper ranks in order to see a lot more team play in effect. But if you know the class really well and enjoy that style of gameplay of being support and distracting and disrupting the enemy team, it can be fun, and I would say give it a go. But it's just not for everyone.
Just not for everyone. And that's how some of the classes I think will always be. I think it's a definite case. So if you enjoy the class, having a Shy, at least in my perspective, as a teammate, assuming they were a decent player, was never a bad thing. I was always happy to see a Shy as a warrior player. It
Mm.
allows me to one combo a lot of classes, makes me way tankier, and some of the support role that the good players give is phenomenal in terms of how it allows me to perform. So just from my
Yeah.
perspective, I was never mad with Shy on my team unless I got two, and then it was like, oh crud.
Yeah. If you get again, it comes down to having two of the same class on this in the same team. If there was one shy, you had about a 60-40, 50-50 chance of winning. If you had two shies, it was a 95% loss. So
Yeah, it's definitely rough sometimes with those class matchups. Um, Moving on from AOS, next for open world GVGs. Is this a class that you like to bring to GVGs if you do a lot of them? Do you think that there's room for Shies in GVGs? I assume it's going to be similar to Nodewars. It's a very dynamic PvP thing, though. Sometimes it's 2v2,
mhm.
sometimes it's, Cho and somebody else brings 100 people and it's absolute chaos. Is this
Yeah.
a class that you like to bring out to GVGs? A class that you don't mind fighting for spots for or getting into whatever open world madness happens? What's your kind of thoughts on it?
Open world GVGs, like large scale GVGs, or even small scale, so like 2v2, 3v3, 5v5, 10, 20 people, those are fun. And yes, Shy does quite well in those situations. It's because you're able to rock it, or you're able to pull out the full DP set and really able to disrupt and uh, sort of control the fight a little bit. Um, as far as like 1v1s in open world, uh, not really. It is extremely difficult. You either have to overgear significantly against your opponent, severely outplay your opponent, um, or hope that they're really bad. Uh, and then there are some classes that we just can't handle. So like Megu, for instance, we have a very difficult time fighting against them 1v1s in open world or in unkept gear. Strikers and Mystic, there's basically no hope because we do basically no damage to them on equal gearing. Um, but yeah, in group content, great. Solo content for PvP, not great.
All right. Um, and then moving on from that into PvE. So I broke it down into three types for PvE. I got low end, mid end, and high end. Low end would be something like centaurs, or if you're really, really new, maybe like manchoms. Mid end would be more things orcs. That's weird to think orcs. Kron Castle, and then the upper end would be something like Olin's, Cryptic Resting Evasion, or Ash Forest. How does Chai kind of do at all three of these types of places in the PVE kind of tier list? If you were to take a Shy from the beginning of the game to the end of the game, purely in a grinding sense, what's the kind of expectation players should have, and how does it kind of perform in all those areas?
So for low to mid grinding, it can be difficult for Shy just because we don't have a whole lot of mobility capabilities for pack-to-pack grinding spots. So like centaurs, Shai does not do well. Other spots that have really spread out packs is also not great, just because again, we don't have great mobility, and our attacks don't have the largest area of effect in terms of like our flooring skills, our main hand skills. And so they can be quite difficult to get to the point where we're able to handle it well. Now, mid to high, where you're talking about like the Serendia Elvia spots, you start being able to really handle ourselves better, just because the spots aren't nearly as spread out. The monsters are a little bit more tanky, so we're taking a little bit more time between each pack. Um, so like Star's End or Orcs or Elvia Nagas in Serendia, Fogans, those places we actually do pretty well. Um, Especially spots that where you're starting to be more stationary. So like Stars End Towers, for instance, Shai does extremely well. Same with the Serendia Elvia Nagas, where you're fighting around the Poison Venus trap or Venus flytrap, and killing all the mobs that spawn there. We do extremely well just because, again, we have high survivability from HP recovery on hit for an add-on, as well as um, we're not having to move around as much, and we have pretty solid uh, DR debuffs on our skills. So um, one thing that you do have to watch for though is once you start getting into the harder spots that have CC capabilities against the player, Shai does not have a lot of protection in terms of our skills. So it is possible to run a full CC resistance build or a high CC resistance build for PvE, just through the crystal setups. Like personally, I run a full 100% CC resistance in all three of the PvE CC types. I don't do as much damage as if I were to only focus on two of the three or one of the three, depending on the spots and changing it how I go. But I find it's more worth it for me personally, just because I don't have to ever think about that. And I've just been playing the class for a really long time, so I know how to get the most damage out of any given skill or any situation that I was in.
A kind
Um,
of grab and go for crystals, you could say.
yeah, yes, kind of. Then for high end spots, Shai does very well as too. So like Olin's Valley, Shai is basically needed for any form of efficient grinding there in a group. Crypt of Rusting Thoughts, we do extremely well because we have, again, it comes down to the HP recovery from our hits. We just have so many hits on our skills, so we have high survivability that way. Again, we're also able to run the full CC resistance builds, so that works out really well at Crypt, because if you get CC'd, you're basically dead unless you V. Um, Lower Gyphins, Shai does really well, again, just because it's more stationary grinding spot. No, we're able to take advantage of our buffs and debuffs really efficiently there. So low mid, I would put us at C minus D. Mid to high, B plus A. High grind, A minus to A plus.
Okay. So it definitely sounds like a class coupled with the needing multiple gear sets for PvP and it being poor at the low end and good at the high end, a class that you might not want to start on unless you're life skilling, and then once you get some PvE, PvP gear, move combat gear, moving into the class would be a lot more viable. Is that something you would say for it?
Yeah, I would say that's, if you're brand new and don't mind doing that, that would probably be the most efficient way to do it. Now that's not to say that you can't start out on Shai, because I mean personally, I leveled my Shai up all the way. I didn't like get it power leveled or anything. I've been playing the class for 3 years, and I grinded at those low end spots because before Shai got the first PVE quote unquote rework, um, it was very poor in PVE. Like even at the mid to high grind spots, it was maybe C plus, but it was just so much fun for me. And so I was able to make those spots sort of work. It's like uh, just made it myself think that it would work. So
Okay. Um, and then moving on from that into 3v3 tournaments. So this is different from AOS. This would be more of the AOA style tournaments, where people are either on trial gear, or people are on uncapped, like the recent PA tournament. Is this a scenario where Shai is just as viable? Do you have a preference in one of the two? I assume from just past talks that uncapped is going to be a much more um, Shai fitting kind of a tournament rather than a trial tournament. What's your kind of thoughts on AOA tournaments and Shai's performance?
in AOA tournaments, in the uncapped gear fights, Shy does really well. Again, it comes down to we're very strong in group content and group PvP fights like that, small scale or large scale. Um, in capped gear, though, like in trials gear, that sort of depends on the situation. So some comps for your team can make it work, but it's a lot more difficult to make it more viable. So it comes down to what gear you're locked into on if it's more beneficial to have a shy or if it's more beneficial to just have another class that can put out a lot of damage. And you can make an argument for both situations just because again the support capabilities like the buffs and the debuffs that Shy is able to apply to enemies is significant even at the capped gear level. It makes a big difference, but it just depends on how you play and who you're playing with.
All right. And then finally for combat stuff, or last for improvements for it, 1v1s. It sounds like already talking in the past that 1v1s are not a great place for Shy. This is more of like a BA or battle arena setting, for both trial and uncapped. I presume I know the answer is that it's not a great class for the position. If that's true, uh, do you think there's anything that you can really do to the class to help it in that kind of a situation without maybe giving it the duality of a combat Shy specialization, like you talked about, like a succession? Um,
Um, I would say one, you're correct. Shy 1v1s, even in BA, not great against most scenarios. Our worst matchup easily is Striker and Mystic, just because we physically don't do any damage to them if we're on equal gear. Um, I think the PvP percent damage is like 29% against them, something ridiculous like that, where we basically do nothing, and then that's on top of the already PvP damage modifiers just for the skills in general. So, um, our best matchups are I mean another Shy just because we know our own kit, so we're able to sort of anticipate how the other Shy is going to play as well. And maybe Witch Wizard just because they have to play far back. Specifically Succession Witch Wizard just because they have to play further back, so we're able to wait for our opportunity to like catch them in a CC and then go in and get them. But even then, it's still not a great scenario.
all right.
Yes.
I was gonna ask what the best and worst matchups were, but it sounds like that you said those already, so that kind of takes care of that. Moving on from combat, the most important questions, one of which was asked to me to bring up from a fan of yours. To start off with, how was the grind at Parades going?
At Pirates,
Or Pirates, yeah.
miserable, absolutely miserable. I've been, I mean, I haven't done a whole lot of grinding recently there, just because I've been busy in real life. But I'm 244 hours into the ring piece grind at Pirates, with nothing to prove or nothing to show except for two duo ethereal earrings and no ring piece.
No ring piece. Oof.
No ring piece.
Um,
Yeah, I'm over the average by like 110, 120 hours now, I think, something like that.
so you're over two times the total hours estimated.
Pretty close. Yeah. I think the average now is like 130 hours or something like that. So I'm pretty close to
Wow,
double the average.
that's rough. Should have been my choice and did it all instead.
Yeah. Man, I wish.
And then finally, what is your favorite costume in Shy? What do you rock a lot of the time if you're not doing a mix match?
So I basically since the Law or Zeka outfit came out, I've only worn Law Zeka. The grindable outfit from Odalita, where you take 100 black leaves and 100 red leaves, or the right and left lung, um, and just turn them in. I think the outfit just looks badass. I've always really enjoyed the more cool kind of style of costumes rather than like the cutesy type. Um, and so I have a dyed Larzak outfit, and I've basically worn that permanently since it came out. It's been great.
It's definitely one of my favorite outfits. It's a little weird looking on the Shy because it's like a demon of sorts.
Oh,
Um,
it's great. It's
but
fantastic.
on the little Shy, it looks a little funny. It's up there with the Berserker Halloween switch where you see this giant outfit on this tiny little Shy.
Oh yeah, the
Um,
Tantu outfit. I
the
did wear
Tantu.
that before Larzak came out as the outfit that I did wear.
Oh, perfect then. All right, thank you for meeting with me today. The questions hopefully weren't too challenging, and a lot of the answers were a little bit different than I was expecting, but pretty good. And with that, if you want to watch Azminek live on Twitch, you can go ahead and catch him on twitch.tv/alakaz2, and I'll have that linked below along with any other social media. Otherwise, any final thoughts or anything to finalize with today?
I don't believe so. I think that pretty covers everything. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you once again for interviewing with me. Hopefully, it was a good time. If you want to, once again, check out any of Asmonek's or Alex's content, I'll have it linked below down in the description. Go check out his stuff. All the footage you saw during his interview was from his stream and various clips, so go check him out. All right, hello and welcome. Thank you for joining me for the interview today. Just to kind of start off with, go ahead and introduce yourself if you could for me.
Hi guys, I'm Wutaru. If you guys can see, I pretty much focused on like PvP as a Shy, pretty much the smaller group type of PvP grinding, um, against other guilds, as I call it, because I usually would go around and you know catch people off guard and do my little funny things and my funny antics. Um, but yeah, I won the Arena of Arsha NA for geared Shy tournament, so it's been a ride. It's been a wild ride, ever since that. So a lot of people did have questions about um, Shy, and I love answering a lot of the questions that people do have, and I do want people to play the class, even though there's a lot of stigma around certain things about the class. So hopefully this helps anybody who's listening. You know, uh, maybe feel like they uh, want to just dive into the class, right? That's what
Give
I'm
it a
here.
chance, see what's
Yeah.
capable of.
Hmm.
So diving into the first questions, we're going to kind of go into the mechanics of the class. So is Shy a class that is dependent on mouse movement in your opinion? Or is it something that is fairly mouse movement free?
It's mouse movement free. There's certain things that you can do on the Shy that does incorporate the mouse movement, but that's like the very very like high advanced things. Like the triple jumps ability where you need to kind of aim your character, that Shy has. It's like a weird like bug in the game, I would say. uh but other than that, they kind of tone it down a bit where you don't have to mouse aim as much anymore.
All right. For gear, is it very gear dependent or dependent on very specific sets of gear, or is it a class that succeeds across the board as you continue to progress through the game or play on different things such as capped content, capped node wars, AOS, or open world, or is it something that is on a crutch or a stilt when it comes to gear?
One of the biggest things that I see when it comes to shy gearing is, it would be solely dependent if you're planning to go end game, uncapped, uh, war versus a cap war, right? If you're focused more towards a cap type node war, I would always tell Shais to always focus on getting their PvE AP gear prior to their defensive gear. Reason being is, with cap node wars and everything like that, your DP is not going to do much. Like, yes, you hit the cap, but what would end up happening if you focus too much on DP gear first is now you are stuck in a situation where you can't even grind PvE to get the gear to move your class further, right? So, if you're looking to go into playing Shy, the biggest thing I always tell everybody is work on AP set first. I know it sounds kind of weird, but that's really the way to go. Uh, because if you're going to play Shy, you're going to have both sets, regardless. Once you reach like endgame.
Mm-hmm. All right. Would you say that Shy is beginner friendly? If somebody is wanting to roll their first class or just get into the game, do you think Shy is something that's available for that, or a good possible pick for that if they like the style of the class, if they like how it plays? Or would you recommend a newer player try something else first and then maybe switch over to Shy later?
I would say it's a good class to start. Um, Definitely because of seasons. With seasons, they made it where you can get geared to pretty much a early soft cap, where shies tend to hit their PVE spike. Um, of course, they're not going to be farming centaurs, but with seasons gear, they have the ability to immediately go into lower Sakraya, and then farm there. And lower Sakraya, like during seasons, is fairly empty because not that many classes can do it. So I would say, yeah, it's gonna be a really easy class. Of course, there's certain tech that you would need to learn on a Shy. But if you watch any of the Shy streamers or videos and stuff like that, we can teach you how to perform specific movements so you can enjoy the class.
All right. And then when it comes to the actual combos or movement itself, is it fairly difficult from a mechanical standpoint? There are some classes that are very difficult to play from a pure mechanical standpoint. Ninja is constantly moving. Zerker has re-CC set combos, which are high in like APM. Is Shy
Mhm.
the case for that, or is it something that's more of a laxed or an easier from an APM or actions per minute side of things?
The APM on a Shy is very dependent on where you're grinding. We have certain spots in the game where we call it like a chill grind, where it's like very low movement areas like Stars and Tower, um, Gyfin Underground, um, Lower Sakurai. I would still consider a low like mobility area. And then you have like high mobility areas like orcs, bloody monastery, castle ruins, stuff like that. So it's highly dependent on that. Like, yes, at Stars End Tower you can literally just hold the right mouse button, and that's what people usually say, like, oh, Shy is an easy class. All you do is hold right mouse button and ta-da, you kill everything. Like, technically, yes, that's correct. And that's, I guess, pretty much only Stars and Tower, because there's a set spawn every time. But if you're moving into like other areas, like Lower Sagraya, like I said, I was talking about Underground Gyfin, it's gonna be a little more intensive. And then, of course, going to Orcs, where you eventually have to do for red shards most of the time, it gets higher APM, like ish over there. And you cannot just rely on just holding right mouse button. Um, so I would say it's area dependent, but fairly easy, I would say, and not so not so stressful on your hands.
Okay. And the next question leading into that
Mhm.
was it hard on the hands? But I think that unless you have anything extra for it, do you think it's not that hard on the hands then? I guess just to clarify.
I would say it's not that hard in the hand if you're getting into it,
Hmm.
but then I want to get that whole entire like like not stair the what did you call it, the whole entire uh what, sorry about that, let me try and think of the word. um Rumors that, yeah, I can say this, rumors another word for rumors. I don't know. But like, yeah, I want to get that whole entire like rumor about like, oh, Shy being such an easy class, holding right mouse button thing. Like, look, you're going to be able to farm holding right mouse button, but farming efficiently uh and farming easily are two different things, right? Yes, I can farm easily, right? Am I going to get the best trash? No, right? Is holding right mouse button going to kill mobs? Yes, right? But then again, like if you're going for like actual grinding, you're going to have to do additional inputs other than holding right mouse button, right? We have our WF ability, which gives us attack speed. We had to constantly rebuff ourselves. Um, there's certain positioning we have to do. We can't always focus on just hitting the mobs from the front, right?
Hmm.
So there's a lot of things that goes on top of it. But I always tell people like easy grind versus efficient grind are two completely different things. Yes, we are easy to play right mouse button gamers, right? But then there's the end game thing where if you're really like looking into playing the class, there is going to be some APM stuff that you have to do, and it does get kind of crazy.
So you have a choice in
Hmm.
how hard on the hands. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, so as long as I've known you as a content creator in streams, I've always known you as a Shy player. Was that your
Hmm.
first class that you picked, or did you re-roll from a different class?
I was on and off on BDO. I started off as a witch, and then I went to a mystic, and then I was like, okay, well, BDO was like really hard to get into, so I'm glad that they released season to kind of guide new players along here. Like if you're just getting into the game back then, it was like pretty difficult. But it came to a point where there was so much you have to do in the game and had so much you had to understand, that I ended up quitting BDO after Mystic. And it was only until they released the Shy, which kind of piqued my interest because in a lot of MMOs and everything like that, I love playing the support class and especially bard type classes, right? And so when I saw it, I was like, okay, cool. There's like a bard type class. It's considered somewhat of a support class from what I saw, and the boomerang attacks, the boomerang attack just got me. Like I'm like, all right, cool. Let's check off everything. The animation is cool. The support type feeling is cool, and it's a bard. So let's go evolve that. And that's what got me into the game, and I pretty much stuck with Shy ever since then. Like you will see me venture off to other classes just to try it out, but I always revert back to Shy being the class of my choice.
Always coming back home for Shy.
Hmm.
All right. And then diving into different game scenarios to start off with. For Node Wars,
Hmm.
capped and uncapped, what kind of a role to Shy play? If somebody's newer looking into the class, what's the expect to see Shy do in Node Wars?
So this will apply to both capped and uncapped because just the playstyle in general is pretty much like in the books. Like we have there's different play styles, and depending on your play style, as a support player, will vary. It will vary in general. Like if you like to be the buffer, which is pretty much the like I would say the one that goes with the ball, not the one always engaging first, then you're gonna be like that Shy in the middle, right? You're not really in the front line. You're kind of in the middle to prevent any players from reaching your back line. And then so like that's what I call like the middleman Shy.
Mhm.
The frontline Shies are the ones where like you would be extremely um uh competent underclass. I would say is like the hardest of them all because you're going in, you have to know how to get out with your very limited mobility, or if you're going to go in, you got to make the biggest impact on there. And then you got the easy Shai, which is like if you're just focused on supporting, you're more of the backline Shai, right? The backline Shai, um, in all scenarios would be like I'm sitting in the back, I'm feeding BSR so my berserkers can go in and do their job. Or look, I got rangers in the back that's just hailing arrows, I got meteors going from wizards and witches and stuff like that. And you're like your main job as a backline Shy is to buff and protect them with your bongos, the bongos, which is like force echo. If you know, for new people, that ability is literally the staple of any group GVG fighting situations. What it would do is, uh, at the cost of the shy stamina, if you hold down the F button, you will emit a AOE, which will stiffen the players coming in, and it's the most annoying thing for an offensive player to engage on the shy when they have that up, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, your goal as a backline Shy is you just buff and you protect your backline. The middle Shy, um, the middle, like the middleman Shy, I would say is a little more difficult because you would have to yeah, you would have to decide whether you need to go and move up with the group or defend the back line. So it requires you to have the ability to think on the fly more than just sitting and just guarding, right? Thinking on the fly is like, okay, I see like a ball coming and they're just bypassing all of the front line and going straight for the back line because, you know, back lines are the squishiest, right?
Hmm.
So are you able to immediately change your game plan on the fly and be like, I got to run back and defend um, the back line because there's like five like people on the flexing just obliterating the back line, right? And one thing that I would say is if you're not gonna be the frontline Shy or a backline Shy, I would say um you would have more leniency on not listening to a shot caller. I know it sounds weird, right? Because the shot caller is focused on trying to process pushes or trying to defend. Like the shy's job is to prevent like the worst case scenario that can happen, right? And be like the eyes behind the shot caller, right? So if the shot caller is like, we're gonna push this thing, and you're a Shy and you're like, hold up, I see flex, like because you're paying attention to the map, you're paying attention to everything else, you're watching your group and they're like people are dying all of a sudden, right? Sometimes the shot caller doesn't see that, so you take the executive decision to go back to defend, or you're like, I find an opportunity to rush into the in with the ball and catch a bunch of people off guard. Like let's say, for instance, one of the cooler plays that you can do as a Shy is right, the other team is going to be going in with their their like Zerkers with their 200s, right?
Hmm.
You can be like, okay, well, I know that like at this time they haven't used their Zerker buff and you're the middle Shy. You could like go in there like, I gotta protect my ball. And how you would protect your ball um in this situation is you would run up in with your group and you're like, we have ability called bubble, right? And that would literally save your whole entire group, right? At the cost of the Shy. As much as it's as it as much as it sounds like, you know, oh, we're just sacrificing yourself, you're actually making a huge play, right? But so I would say if you are good at if you're good at like making decisions on the fly, and that's your gameplay, like then yeah, you know, you can stick to being the middle Shy, right? And that would focus on you kind of not listening to your shot caller. And then the hardest of everything is like I said, the frontline Shy. um Whether it's like the gear cap wars or the uncap wars, your main goal is to prevent the engage from the offense from happening at all. Like you are there to scuff everything. You're not paying attention to the back line because you're not going to be able to reach the back line. You're just ready, right? You're ready to prevent any worst case scenarios for your ball. For example, again, we're using the bubble situation for a Shai, which is the most annoying ability, and of course, it's working as intended, right? um, but yes, so you catch yourself just buffing your group beforehand, and then immediately looking and scoping out every scenario that can possibly happen. Like you just have to run strategies in your head, like at a fast rate, right? Do I go in? Do I bubble? I heard that my shot caller say, "Oh, we're all going to engage first, right?" And you're like, "Okay, well." I'm looking at there, like I'm a frontline Shire, and I'm like looking, I'm like, okay, there's like 5 Zerkers, right? Like you just have to pay attention. Like 5 Zerkers on the left hand side. I know that they're gonna jump in, they're gonna try to bubble thing. Then later you can go in there and you're like, okay, what can I do uh to to uh to prevent my whole entire ball from getting blown up, right? You're like, okay, I saw 5 Zerkers on this cliff. You're gonna like sneak around as a frontline Shy, and you're just gonna scuff them, right? You can bongo them, right? And what that would do is because they have to listen to the shot caller. I don't think they're like the Zerkers or any of those engaging classes would be on comms as much, because they're trying to listen to the shot caller. And by you just like stopping the engage when the opponent is probably going to try to make a play is the biggest hindrance to the other group, right? If you know that these Zerkers or these engagers are going to jump in and you bubble them or you bongo them and prevent them from going in, they're going to go in like the opponent, like, or the enemy team is probably going to go in with half their power, right? And that will turn the tide, right? Imagine there's 5 Zerkers like I was talking about, and only 2 of them was able to get through in 200, right? Well, now instead of having 5 Zerkers as 200ing or whatever in our ball, right? You have 2 unprotected Zerkers in their 200, probably just wasting it because like, oh, they didn't have the full power to go in like as intended, right?
Mm-hmm.
So frontline Shies, you have to always think of everything, right? At the same time as you're doing this, you cannot just go in and just die, right? I see a lot of people like, oh, I'm going in as a Shy. I'm going to go in with come out, which is our protected movement going in, and you're like immediately dead, right? That's not being a frontline Shy. That's just actually griefing your group, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a frontline Shy, you have to go in, you have to plan almost like things immediately, and then try to get out with your life, right? And there's ways you can do that, right? And I'm not just saying go in there, make a mistake, press V and get out. It's like go in there, cause as much havoc as you can, prevent any strong plays that the enemy is thinking of, and then getting back to your ball and surviving and informing them um, of what's going on, right? You're not going to be there. You could be like, pop up your bubble and you could type in like your guild chat or your alliance chat, be like, I bubbled 3 Zerks, watch out, right? And then in that 6 seconds, 7 seconds that you have them CC'd, hopefully the alliance is like looking at chat and kind of understand like, oh,
This
there's going to
happened,
be
or
3
this
more
might
Zerkers,
happen.
yeah. Mm-hmm. So
It
yeah,
sounds like
yeah. Sorry about that going for like a long time, but there's like so many different like play styles to really go over in terms of a Shy. But I would say whatever fits your specific play style. If you want to kind of be the full on support, you want to be um, the game maker, or if you want to be like just a defensive like person, you can play like the middleman Shy. So it's like, yeah, there's a lot you can do.
it sounds like that it can take a fairly relaxed role, but as somebody who's never played Shy,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a little bit of an eye opener in how much actual strategic value it can do beyond the kind of obvious from a shot caller side.
Mm-hmm.
Having your buffs before you engage, having the heals while you're fighting are obviously very intrinsic, or it's something that you if you know the basics of the kit or watching a
Hmm.
Shai play, those are helpful and great. Having bubble for things like iframe CTG, using it to block off choke points and stuff like that is definitely something that's super useful. But
Hmm.
the actual depth of the nature of how you can play the class is something a little bit beyond what I thought a lot of Shis were doing or that you could do on Shai. So having that kind of a level of strategic value or the upper end of how much a Shy can really put into playing the class would definitely, if I was looking into a class like that, um, pique my interest in the sense of it's not just a snooze fest. There's a lot of thinking you can really do, and there's a lot
Oh
of
yeah, yeah.
a skill to the class if you want to be in proper places. But if you want to play a more relaxed approach too, it does have that capability. So that's cool to hear from either side. If someone gets off a long day of work and they want to play chill, they can play chill. If somebody wants to, slam a monster and get focused in and get the just get full gamer mode ready, then they have that option too. So that's actually really cool to
Yeah.
hear.
Hmm.
For Node Wars specifically, capped and uncapped, or you can kind of dive into either as you need. What do you think Shai needs to receive from a buff standpoint, from a skill standpoint, to succeed to its truest without making it overpowered, of course? And then what are things that you think the PA needs to be careful of buffing or be careful of giving to the class to make it overpowered, or something that they might even need to remove if you think the class is a little bit overtuned in some aspects.
I think in terms of Node War, I mean, the biggest thing for Shy, and now people are going to probably like say, "Oh, that's BS" or anything like that. Like, we need protection, right? We need additional protection. Going in to a lot of situations as a Shy, people are like, "Yeah, but you have bongos; it's super armored and everything." I'm like, "That's not what I'm talking about, right?" Or people are going to say like, "You have a super armor engage," and I'm like, yes, we do, but that's on a 3 minute cooldown or 2 minute cooldown, stuff like that. That's really annoying. Can you imagine like if you were a Sork or uh Mystic or a Zerker, right? That your iframe ability or your super armor ability is once every um 2 minutes, right? Like, and that's just moving from the ball to the front line or from one area to another protected, right? Like it sucks as a Shy. Like honestly,
Mm-hmm.
um, we need some kind of mobile skill with some protection, right? Um, and they tried to fix that, right? They tried to fix that with the skateboard ability that the Shy has. Um,
Which is
but the
unprotected, correct?
Yep, 100% unprotected, 15-second cooldown. If you want to get into technical terms, I would say it's about like a 6 frame, 7 frame startup. If you guys don't know, it's like 7 frames. It's about like you're going on a 60-second thing, and it's 60 frames. It takes uh seven seven out of 60 seven out of the, I don't know what do we call it, like out of the 60 frames. Um, is all unprotected in a startup where you're not able to move or enter any commands or anything like that. And there's like a 6 second um like dismount, right? So
Mm-hmm.
in that time, it's horrible. Like, you don't get to use the ability if you use it incorrectly, and if you happen to try to like, oh, I need to stop right here or move away, you're unable to do that because you're open for that small period, and that could just literally get the Shy killed because you're not going to be able to um,
Do
fight
anything.
your way out. Yeah, yeah.
A lot of
So
unprotected animation lock.
yeah, the animation lock is pretty horrible. And in certain situations, like in bigger node wars and sieges, it's like you can't see you can't see a lot of the abilities coming outside from a unrendered area, right? But you still get hit, and you're like, what's going on? Um, so if our buffs, at least on startup, right? If our buffs at least on startup has a iframe or super armor, that'd be great, right? And people are gonna be like, but that's gonna be OP. It's not gonna be OP. And um I can tell you guys why. Our debuffs apparently on startup is supposed to have super armor on cast, everything like that, and we still get knocked out of it, right? So by us having super armor or forward guard on our buffs is not gonna make us OP. It's gonna make us able to support without having to worry about all these classes now, especially like the new Megu class that comes out. You don't know what you're getting hit by, but all of a sudden you're stiffened and you're just knocked down because they're hitting you from outside the render distance, right? Um, so yeah, additional protections on just buffs in general, right? And and that will definitely help. Like I'm not saying fully protected. I'm just saying on startup at least have something because having a lower cooldown isn't the solution for us um for us to be like, oh yeah, you're just able to just recast it after a short amount of time. We lowered it from 30 seconds to 10 seconds. You should be happy. I'm like, yeah, that does help, but it like if you miss one crucial buff, you're stopping somebody like from engaging for 10 seconds, and that 10 seconds in any push or anything is will make it or
Huge.
break it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So a slight buff. I'm not saying like make it super crazy where you can be invincible while buffing because there is still strategic methods of buffing your class without getting hit or stuff like that, right?
You don't want double TP buff while fighting, kind of a thing. Just
yeah. No, we just want uh we just want to be able to buff and do our job, right? We just want to do our job, right? We're not asking for um much, right? And when we do caster buffs, we're pretty much like static in one area. So if you know that uh you just engage on the Shai or you just blow up a Shai in that general area, we cannot escape. Our buffs are going to be down. We're KD'd or something. It just sucks.
and that's where the counter comes into play.
Mm-hmm. So I was just asking more protection. Like, so on the skateboard, have protection. If you're going to give us that long of a startup and on that long of a dismount, give us protection on that. I don't care if it's super armor or a forward guard or something. Just give us something to be able to survive that, right? Because one thing that PA said is like, Shais are not supposed to fight, right? We're going to give you a mobility skill. And what's the whole entire point of getting a mobility skill if we can't even disengage? Right? Whether it's a 1v1 situation or anything like that. Because the second we start using it, a warrior would hit us with a range attack or grab us. A Zerker can literally outrun our skateboard, right? A Musa Maywa will, a Megu can. And it's just really horrible. I've been trying to push one thing like strongly on the Shai, and I don't know if it will happen, but if it does happen, it'll be great. Our ability 1, 2, 3, which is our Shai's main attack. I'm asking like PA, can you please give us a protection on that? Whether it's a forward guard or a super armor, just something, right? That is the only way a Shai can like engage like in a smaller ball situation and get out, right? Because one of the effects that the ability has is on your right mouse button attack, your 1, 2, 3. It has a ability to stiffen the person, right? Once every 6 seconds, right? But let's say you stiffen somebody and you're trying to run away, that stiffen timer is not going to let you disengage, right? So if you're going to try to combo somebody or anything like that, right? If they're attacking you at the same time you're doing your 1, 2, 3 ability, their ability is most likely protected ability going in on the engage, and they're just going to be able to avoid the stiffen and just get in front of your face and just like obliterate you, right? Whereas if you have a forward guard, at least if you're facing the person or you have a super armor, you can do your full 1, 2, 3 combo on a person. And if they are engaging protected with like an iframe or something, you can still be protected and land a stiffen to like disengage or escape, right? Because now you're able to effectively use that ability instead of just catching somebody off guard, right? Which is never the case in a 1v1. If they're just focused on getting like on killing you, they're going to just focus on killing you. So they could give us a protected 1, 2, 3. Like I don't care if they put it on a 6-second cooldown with the stiffen ability, or they just want to give it on the first initial startup. Because a Shai, we only have 2 forward guard abilities, and they only last a quarter of a second. And you're like, that's it, quarter of a second. We have 2 abilities, yeah, and they're on a 6 to 8 second cooldown, right? It's ridiculous. Like we have a forward guard ability. I mean, we have a guard like meter, and we're not able to use it, right? We don't have an S block, we don't have a Q block, right? And we're carrying a boomerang bigger than our body. Yet, a Kunoichi with like a toothpick can Q block and S block, right? Like what the heck? You're blocking your whole entire body with a kunai, right? But a Shai can't protect themselves with a boomerang the size of them, right? So give us something. Give us a forward guard. Give us an S block. Give us a Q block. We need something to use that guard meter, right? Because we have the HP pool to do so, right? You look at any other classes out there, and they're like, oh look, I can hold my S block and S block, not S block, a forward guard. Forward guard is like reliant on your HP. It's based off your HP. And like, we don't get to see that much. Right? We don't get to see that much. We get to see it a quarter of the second every 6 seconds. Right? Why don't you test your combo on our forward guard meter with your combo? And we're like, wait, why didn't you block? It's like, oh, sorry, it only lasts like 25th of a second. Like what the heck?
With the current state of Shai, is it something that you would that you think holds up in the upper end of PvP and Nodewar specifically? Is it something that if you are a geared Shai and you're very proficient at the class, that you can get into some of the upper guilds currently, like Cho, Digital, Corrupt, etc.?
I believe so. Like I don't want to like call out something. I'm just gonna say some of the guilds. I'm gonna say some of the guilds, okay? I don't want to call out specific guilds because I don't want to be like, oh, like they're hurting for Shais. I kid you not, a lot of the upper guilds are hurting for Shais, right? It comes to a point where like I'm kind of on like the back end. Like I'm in a PvP guild, right? I'm in a PvP guild. We do node wars, we do sieges and stuff like that. But it's so hilarious. It's like, Wutaru, like, when are you gonna join our guild? I'm like, I can't, guys. I'm just chilling, like trying to be on the back end. It's like retirement, right? and they're like, dang it, it's like that sucks. We could really use you. I'm like I'm pretty sure I'll get like we'll get some Shais in for you, like because I always push for like anybody who watches my stream and stuff like that, like just play Shai. Don't worry about other people just saying all this stuff about Shai. Like if you enjoy the class, play it. Like once you reach end game, or you're like even working towards end game, a lot of these guilds are looking for Shais. That it's like I as much as people like, ew, Shai sucks, get away. They're horrible class. Every class is hurting for him, right? Every class, every guild is hurting for them. So
right.
yeah.
So it sounds like there's definitely a demand for Shais right now then.
There's a huge demand for him. And like if you talk to anybody in the EU, they'll say the same thing. Like Shais are very, very important and everything. They would not run a node war without a minimum of X amount of Shais, depending on how big of a
guild they are
a
and
war
how big it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And then to go back to one more thing in regards to that, like in our AOA talk, right? And I always push this every time, and if you're gonna talk to them about this as well, one of the biggest thing that they wanted to push out, and I immediately said no to, because you were mentioning stuff about we don't want to be super OP where we end up getting the nerf bat, right? I would say our group did a pretty good job when we were having the AOA questionnaire, or the voice, our voices heard when we were talking about that. PA was going to push out something, and you as a player yourself, and a Nodewar, enjoyer, um, you would probably think it's ridiculous, right? And I want to say it, and I want to let you guys know, I'm I thought about it, and I said no immediately when PA was like, "Okay, we're going to try to give a shot. We gotta have the idea for awakening Shai, right? Because a Shai only focus on pretty much their pre-awakening for anything, and like the buffing and everything is technically their awakening. They were saying that they want to split both of the types of Shai players, right? Whether you want to be an awakening buffer and full on support, and a just like a PvE focus, I can do some damage type
Combat
thing,
Shy.
as a combat Shy as a succession. Their thoughts on that was, as an awakening Shy, right? You would have like you would have the ability to be the support class you want to be, um and they said they will reduce all of our attacks, that we do, like our damage, uh down to like 90, down by 99%. And I'm like, okay, that's perfectly fine. Like, what do we get by you doing that? And they were like, oh, this is the advantage you would have in Node Wars and Cap Sieges. Yeah, in Cap Node Wars and Cap Sieges. Um, if you are, if you have the Awakening, buff on you as a Shy, you are not, um, you are not affected by the cap. And I'm like, when they said that, I'm like, no. Immediately just said no. I don't do that, because can you imagine you have a 350 DP cap, and you see a Shy that's like full DP, like 500 plus DP that's going in there? They're not going to get killed, right? And they're like, what's the issue with that? You guys are able to defend. You're able to defend yourself, by not dying. You get like have a whole entire ball on top of you and not die. I'm like, that sounds good on paper, but that will literally ruin all of Cap Node Wars and Sieges, because you're going to have everybody tag a Shy, 500 DP, run in with axes, this running towards the base, because there's nobody to stop them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, do not do that. Do not give us the ability to go in and not be affected by cap, cap gear, right? Like, and like, they're like saying like, oh, but you can't kill anybody. I'm like, that's not the point. I don't care about killing people or anything like that. I'm just trying to do my job. But if you make it where we're invincible, you're gonna literally kill your Node War C, especially in those situations. And I told them, like, and I think there's other people as well during the talk in AOA, where we're like, no, I don't think that's a good idea, right? Even if you reduce our damage by 99%, Sheena axes are not affected by that, right? Sheena axes are not affected by that. Muskets are not affected by that. You're literally just a pillar of unkillable CC, and that's not
It's
how
not
I
fun
think
gameplay either.
it's not, right? Like I said, you're gonna see like 50-man Node Wars. You're gonna have like 40 Shies and 10 people on defense, and it's just Shies running with axes. As funny as it would look, it's not the way to go. And I immediately told PA, like, look, that's gonna ruin your game. So don't do that. And they were like, okay, so we might not have an awakening thing. I'm like, if that's your your thoughts on how to make Shy viable, then that's not the way to go. That's not the direction, and they need to go back to the drawing board in terms of that. So
Okay.
I'm with everybody. Like, I'm not here to make the class so OP that everybody would play it and we become a meta and all that stuff. That's not my goal in the game. My goal is to just add certain balancing, which I think as a Shy main, um, I believe that we should have those things that I mentioned. Protected skateboard, at least a protection on startup, for our buffs, an S block or a Q block, something that we can utilize, right? Um, other than it being some abilities that we have that's protected once every 3 minutes, 2 minutes, stuff like that. So
If somebody
so that
wants
that was the thing.
to play Shy, then you want it to
Mhm.
succeed, but you don't want everyone to play Shy. That makes sense.
Well, no, I
Um,
want I want
well,
everybody to play. I want everybody to play Shy. Like I love the class. The class is amazing. Like it's really trolly. And I always tell people you'll have fun with the class, right?
mhm.
But yeah.
Um, moving on from Node Wars,
Mhm.
into AOS. In AOS itself, what should a new player or player not familiar with the role of Shy expect to see or expect to do in AOS? What's the kind of role it plays?
So the Shy's role in AOS is, um, as crazy as it sounds, you lead your group, right?
Mm-hmm.
If this is uncapped, hopefully it's uncapped. We're not talking about trial, right? We're not trial gear AOS, or we're talking about
Reign of
like
Solare,
gear.
Solare.
Oh,
The
sorry. I was
Yep,
thinking AOA. Sorry. Okay, sorry about that.
you're
Yeah,
good.
sorry. AOS. Okay. AOS. So the main job still applies. Like Shai is going to lead you, lead the group, right? In Arena Solare, uh, you are the shot caller. You are the point person, right? Your job is to engage and have your teammates play on you, right? The reason why you want them to play on you is because you're the one of the classes that go full DP evasion, right?
Mm-hmm.
In a cap situation, uh, where I would say capped in terms of like gear, because uh you could have more defense and lower AP or something like that. Like you're not like Nodewar cap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, you actually can tank, right? So if you engage and you CC a bunch of people, it's up to your teammates to uh,
Deal the
utilize that.
damage. Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to utilize that. And one crazy advantage, as a Shy player, in there is, if you catch somebody in bongos or the forest echo, the enemy team cannot V out of it, right? Because they're
Mm-hmm.
in a stiffened state as long
Oh,
as they're not
the
KD'd or
bubble.
anything. No, in a bongos.
Oh,
They
and
cannot V.
yeah, bongo. Sorry,
Yeah.
bongos.
Yeah. In bongos, they cannot V out of it. So if you're able to get on comms, which is, somewhat important, you can tell your teammates, like, hey, I got two people CC'd in my bongos. Just engage it and blow them up, right? Don't do any KD abilities. Don't do anything. Just pure damage, right? Unprotected damage if you need to, because they're not going to be attacking back. And you can do it that way, like that's your goal, right? Your other thing about the Shy is, you can play differently. You can protect your rangers or your archers or your casters as well, right? If your team is unwilling to work with you, you can still play the defensive Shy again. You can just sit on your teammates and use the bongos, and prevent any damage from going in there and letting them escape. There's a lot of things, but I would say the main thing as a Shy is in AOS is the point. You run the point. You are shot calling. If you're able to do so, right? Some people might not want to go on voice, right? There's other tools you have like pinging, right? Maybe that might help you or in some way. But that's pretty much that, right? We do have a few tricks up our sleeves in terms of a shy. Um, we're able to, as you mentioned earlier, bubble, right, and prevent them from being. If a if you have a person that you know is going to V out of a combo or anything, you can pop your bubble, and by the time the bubble ends, their V is ending around the same time. But you literally reduce like the amount of movement that a person can do in V into one confined bubble. And the second they pop out, you're not able to move um, out of V. So you can re-engage on that one person while they're unable to move and guarantee a kill, right? So if you're an advanced shy, you'll bubble the people who V. Um, or we also have something, if you know, if you're a new shy player, we have an ability to mark a target, right? What a mark does is if you hit somebody with the ability before they V, if you look at your mini map, they will still appear on the mini map, right? So you
Mm-hmm.
can follow up after they get out of the V, and you can like, hey guys, there's somebody popping out here. Are you gonna ping like crazy in one general direction, like ping, ping, ping? You know, the second somebody gets out of V, you can use our CC ability called Eat This, which stuns somebody, and literally keep somebody CC'd or out of combat for like 8 seconds, right? And 8 seconds is a long time. So um, we have that like specific niche that in a thing that I don't think that many shies know of. Because I think a lot of them would go in there and be like, "Hey, I'm just gonna go bongo. I'm gonna buff and just bongo, right?" And then not really utilize the full kit of a shy. And you know how we were mentioning earlier about APM in AOS, it's all about APM. In PvP, it's all about APM, right? PvE, not so much. So there's a lot that you had to think of ahead of time um, in AOS, and your mind is running like 1,000 miles per hour.
All right. In AOS specifically, is Shy a class that you would recommend somebody who may want to climb the ladder, while also enjoying their class, of course? If they enjoy Shy, do you think it performs well in AOS? Going with the season 2 accessories and items and balance.
That one's tough, right? People, I would say yes, you can climb easily on a shy, uh, but it's solely dependent on your teammates, right? In AOS, right? And we want to try to get rid of that stigma like shies aren't great in AOS. Or if you're playing a shy, um, that you're weighing down the team, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
in NA and in certain situations, I would say they're like everybody's so into doing damage that they ignore like they will ignore your shy, or they will just engage first without working around your shy, or you know, I find it at least at lower elo more difficult than and then the higher elo, right? Like, so if you're trying to get in there to just to climb, I would say that's not really the way to go. I would play a class that can actually carry, like when like the Megus or Sages or even Mystics and stuff like that. I would say they are Musa. Yeah, let's throw in Musa too. Like those classes, you're able to climb with, right? Like if you're put into a 2v1 situation, at least you're able to like pull something off, right? You miraculously. But if you're in a 2v1 situation and you're a shy or something like that, or in a 1v1 situation for that, um, it's pretty much almost a loss, right? And yeah, so like to start off as a Shy, unless you're dedicated. I mean, you could go in there and you're dedicated and to playing the Shy class. You can climb, right? But I would recommend that you would play practice if you're trying to learn the Shy before going into ranked. Um, because we already have a um we already have like a bad stigma around our characters, and we're just in there and AOS to grieve people or whatever. We don't want that to go even further, right? We don't want people like, yeah, I had the Shy, they suck. This I hate Shies. They just grief your games, and I don't want that message to go any further than where it is currently right now, especially in NA. In EU, they love the Shies. They love the Shies, and I always tell people it's the respect of a class, right? In NA, unless unless you have a name for yourself, or um unless you have a name for yourself, or you show them by proving, like, in your AOS match, that you're competent, a lot of people would just put the blame on the Shy, right? We lost because the Shy didn't do any damage. And I'm like, we're not supposed to do damage, right? um but I guess, to put it more harshly, um people need to take accountability for their actions in AOS, right? And not just use the Shy as a scapegoat. Because right now we're mostly a scapegoat in AOS. If we lose, it's because the Shy didn't do damage. If we lose, it's because uh you know the Shy wasn't with us. They could be like a Draconia, or somebody who has extremely mobile skills and stuff like that, and we're like trying to catch up. It's always our fault, right? So
Mhm.
as long as we get that stigma out in NA, I think you can possibly climb. But everywhere else, like, they know the potential of a Shy, and they don't scapegoat as much. Uh, yeah, I mean, that's my take on there. Like, I don't want to. It has to go out, right? I have to say that. Like, it goes down to respect. If they don't respect you, you know, nothing's gonna get accomplished as a Shy here.
Okay. For moving on from AOS into open world GVGs, if you're a person that likes open world GVGs or open world PvP in general, is Shy a class that succeeds there? You can have fun with and do well in open world combat and its many variations, or is it something that you would shy somebody away from if that's their kind of main focus or goal? Somebody, an older name people know is like Android 17. He's a red tamer. I
Hmm.
believe Lux of Legends is actually a red Shy.
Yes.
Um, is this a class that if somebody wants to do that red gameplay style, or is just really into guild GVGs, that you would recommend, or say that Shy is a class that you can have a good time on for that?
I would say, I mean, there's special situations. Lux does a lot of the 1v1 surprise ganks. And if you catch somebody off guard, of course, yeah, you can kill them, or you cause a nuisance in their in for the opponent. But the 1v1 is not great. If you're talking about like anything more than 1v1, I would say even a 2v2. Like a 2v2, you have a Shy and you have somebody who's good at DPSing, you can actually turn the tide, right? But the Shy is so reliant on having somebody else with them to be able to successfully PvP, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do it in a 1v1 situation? Can you do it with gear? Yes, you can. But that causes another issue in the game, which I'll get into after I explain this. The PvP thing, like 1v1s, the likeliness of you winning is very slim, very very slim. Like, it's like literally um two checks, right? Do you heavily outgear somebody? And if you caught them off guard, right? If you heavily outgear somebody, of course you can just kill anybody. Like, I could go around killing a 560 gear score person if I wanted to, right? or life skiller if I wanted to. That's not considered PvP. That's just being a nuisance. Um, but if you know like it, if you catch somebody, you might be able to take advantage of your 6 seconds, and if you can't kill them in 6 seconds, then that too bad. It's got to run. But in a 2v2 situation and above, I would say up to like a small scale, right? Up to like a 10v10. Like a Shai is good. A Shai is extremely good, right? By having one Shai on one team versus a Shai on the other, not having a Shai on the other team in a 10v10, you would see yourself winning most of those fights. It's because of the buffs. It's because of your CC potential, right? It's about your tight group that you have in a small ball situation going against your small ball, right? If the opponent's small ball is unable to act because the Shai is really good at CCing them, then yeah, you're gonna come out on top all the time. But yeah, 1v1s, no. 2v2s and above. I mean, like if you're talking about like 15 man, 20 man GVGs, it gets kind of hectic there, but it gets hectic regardless, right? Everybody is off doing their own thing. Some people are trying to rat it out, and a Shai doesn't really have a clear like ball that they're working with. It just, if I can buff 2 or 3 people here, maybe it might work and give your team an advantage. But I think anything more than 10 man, it gets hectic, and you would either need more Shais to kind of round up those other loose ends, or just don't have that 15 versus 15 or 20 versus 20 GVGs, with only one Shai.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So PvE from the low
Mm-hmm.
end, the mid end, and the high end. Is this a class that if somebody may only be interested in PvE or is wanting to PvE on it, or is just looking for their new PvE class, so like they might like to switch around? Is this a class that is viable at all ends of PvP? Is significantly better or worse at certain ends, or what's kind of your gist on each of those for again PvE?
For PvE specifically, I would say a Shai is good early game, horrible mid game, and really good end game. Right? The reason why we say end game type things is because there's like Olins, there's like upper Gyfins, right? There's lower Gyfins and stuff like that. But specifically in terms of end game, like Olins and upper Gyfin, we work better in groups. That does not change from PvP or anything like that. We work better in groups. If you can enable 3 to 5 people on a grind, you're gonna be like really strong, right? Um, Early game, the reason why I say that Shai is able to do that because the AP cap on certain areas is so low that a Shai would be able to one combo a lot of mobs, right? But it's the mid game, and I call mid game like Bloody Monastery, um, Orcs, Fogans, more of the general like Serendia type areas,
Mm-hmm.
where a Shai would not be able to farm that much because number one, mobility is an issue for us. We can't jump to pack like as easily, and we're not one shotting these packs, right? We're not one shotting unless we have a weapon, and with the weapon changes, it just makes it so much harder for us to kind of keep up momentum in those areas. But if you're able to slug through mid game and get to end game, you should be like smooth sailing from there, right?
Okay.
Other than
Yeah,
that, like
that's
yeah.
when it comes to Upper Gyfin or Turos or any of the group spots that I have done grinding with, having a Shai in the party is almost always a very positive thing. Even some of the
Mm.
better grinders in the game, like Suck Striker and Lon and whatnot, as they've been very good. If you ask me, would I rather have one of them or Shai? It's usually Shai is the answer because not only do they tend to grind those kind of areas just on their own proficiently, but giving me buffs to be even more proficient is also super nice.
Yeah,
Um,
one of the funny complaints that we hear, and most of the time for group gaming is like, I don't have any cooldowns.
you don't
That
have any
every time I
cooldowns.
hear that, I
Yeah,
just laugh. Yeah, I don't have any cooldowns. Stop it. I'm like, no, right?
people don't know how to use fillers when they're not used to it.
Yeah, because they're so used to this. I do this combo to this, and I was like, but with a Shy, we enable you to
To do
fight so
more.
much faster. You're like, what do I do now? It's like, don't worry, I got you. I'll do the rest of the damage. As a Shy
Hmm.
type thing. But yeah, it requires a lot of dedication, right? Um, and one word of advice uh for Shy is if you're gonna focus on PVE, um, you have to make your Artina Soul. You have to make it a pen Artina Soul, like our talent weapon. Otherwise, you're not really considered end game at any point, right? You can have like 301 AP Kudum, right? And you're in a group. You have a Tet Artinas. You have a Tet Artina. Yeah, Tet. Yeah, Artina Soul. People are like, we'll pass, right? And even if it's a Shy, because the Artina Soul itself plays a huge role in everything, because it's gonna increase the group grinding potential by like 5% or higher, because there's a 5% difference in terms of buffs between the Tet and the pen. So yeah, that you don't want to grief your group there, right? And it sucks as well because you can't tag an Artina Soul, so you actually have to
Make it your own.
not Artina Soul. Yeah. Is it? I just call it a soul. I think because people like I don't want yeah I guess I'll say Artina Soul, because I don't want people to think like a pen Tavala Soul is the same thing,
Hmm.
But yeah, you need that early game. If you get it, like let's say you're grinding and you happen to get a pen Artina Soul like right off the bat, then man, your grinding low end is like way crazier, and it makes mid game grinding less painful. But you can, as a low level grinder, get away with a Tet Artina Soul, right? But it's just only end game. If you're serious about it, make a pen. Other than that, like if you don't do it, you're griefing not only yourself but your group.
One of the priority items for the mid and high end game.
Hmm. And yeah, and if people were to say like, "Oh, do I focus on a pen Black Star or a pen Offhand or pen Kudum?" I'm like, no. You have a pen Artemis Soul? If you answered no, I would say that even before pen Black Star or anything like that.
Okay. Moving on from PvP into 3v3s. You talked about these previously. This is more of a tournament focus, so AOA or Arena of Arsha.
Hmm.
For both uncapped and capped content, what role does the Shy play? If it's different from AOS, if it's similar to AOS or the same as AOS, you
Hmm.
can somewhat glance over it. And then is Shy a good or useful class to have in AOAs for both, again, capped and uncapped? And when I say capped, I refer to trials.
Yeah. You would rarely see. I would say the likeness of you bringing a trial Shy into um AOA is slim to none. Like you either have to be like crazy to bring a Shy in trial AOA, or you trust a Shy that much that um you don't mind having one of them, right? Uh Reason being is with AOA trial gear, you only have an AP set. They don't have a DP set. So you get one combo, you just with your lack of protection, and it's just actually hindering you. You actually griefing your group in that point. Can it work if the Shy know what they're doing? Like if you know how to stay protected, you know how to do all that stuff, you know how to escape, you know how to CC, you know how to bubble, you know how to impair the other team. Then yes, it can work. The reason why you see Shy's thriving in AOA with geared uh with their normal gear is because they are able to go the full DP build. And yeah, so the roles, if you happen to bring a Shy in AOA trial gear, you are legit the buffer. You are the fly, that's buzzing around somebody's head, right? You're just there to keep somebody, like one person out, right? You buff your team, you just want to keep that one person from engaging, right? You just want to be that nuisance. Like I would say, trial AOA Shy is more of a rat class, right? You're just out there to be a nuisance. right? But if you're playing with real gear, it completely changes how the playstyle of the Shy is. You are going to be that one Shy that sticks with your group, right? You are hovering around your point person, right? You're no, you know whether it's going to be in that instance with Lux winning that side AOA tournament with Ice. Lux was sticking with Ice, and you're just following your damage, right? You protect
Hmm.
your damage and let your damage just get like let the person get with all the buffs just obliterate everybody because they have the ability to do their main damage abilities without having to worry about staying protected, right? So, um, in a gear tournament, you will hover around uh one one or two. Like if you're able to group up, if you're able to group up together, that's even better, right? But if you're unable to group up, like let's say you have like a rat class of your own in your team, you're just following your damage. You are literally tethered to whoever you think is going to carry, right? And you just let the other person with your buff just do their own thing, right? If they can pick off somebody, they can pick off somebody. Um, but yeah, you're not going to be a shot caller really in AOA compared to AOS. Um, so yeah, this stick with your your main damage dealer in that case. I hope that like explains more in depth of like trial versus like geared
Gear.
in
Yeah,
AOA. Yeah.
for sure does. I haven't had a Chai teammate before, and I actually haven't fought a Shy in AOA as well. Just from what you're talking about and the way you explain the class role, probably because I've only done trial tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Um, wasn't able to get a team for the guild tournament, unfortunately. But um, it definitely makes sense in how it's supposed to play or what you should expect to see in AOA for tournaments. Um, if you are in various PvP situations, this can be AOS, Node Wars, Open World, 1v1s, 3v3s. When it comes to matchups, or since Shai seems to be less of a duelist and more of a support class, what classes, when you see them, make you shudder or are worse matchups, and which ones do you see and kind of laugh at in the sense of that they're not a threat?
um, let's go with I guess the shuddering one to the laughing ones. Uh, Striker Mystic. You shudder at every sight of Striker Mystic. Is it because they are like really good at the game in some cases? No, I would say no. I would say a good like 60-70% of the strikers you go against aren't good. And strikers mystics aren't good, right? And they fall back onto um the whole notion of class mods, right? And if you don't know what class mods are, it's our damage dealt to a specific other class, right? Strikers and mystics, just by being a striker and mystic against a shy, has a 72% damage reduction. A 72% damage reduction. Just if I look at you and you look at me, and like, just because you're a striker and mystic, you get a 72% survivability bonus because hey, gauntlets are so strong, right? And if you would put them in a situation where you're both uh equally geared, like 99% of the chance, like 99% of the time, the shy would just lose. 99%. Like because it doesn't apply to the striker and mystic, the striker and mystic are able to do 105% damage to you, right? And it's not fair, right? Why is one class able to do like 105% of the damage versus us being able to do 28% of our damage, right?
Mm-hmm.
They did fix that uh when it comes to ninjas, right? They actually equaled it out for ninjas for us to do a little bit more damage to them because they used to have the crazier one, right? If you thought 72% damage reduction was crazy, a ninja versus a shy was 81%. damage reduction just because you're a ninja. But they fixed that, so they're no longer the bigger threat in here. So it goes to Striker and Mystic as the worst. Followed by Strikers and Mystics. Every class that has a Q block. Warriors, Valkyries, Novas, anything with a Q block. Reason being is we don't do damage to, in a 1v1 situation, by the way. This is all 1v1. We don't do damage to guards at all. I was having a friendly little duel with Zerodin, right? I think I have almost equivalent gear against Zerodin. He just stayed in Q block as just to troll me. He just stuck himself in Q block, and when his grab was up again, or any of the classes grabs are up again, they did go up and grab me and then full combo me, right? Not fun. It's not fun at all. And this is me with full AP. Like I could go in there with 323 AP and do no damage to someone's forward guard. And then if I do happen to get them with a combo, they just wake up and press Q again and then heal full. And then guess what? I just can't do anything. So go Striker Mystic, any Q block classes, and then I would say after that maybe like a Zerker, and now Tamers, and Musas because of mobility, right? Because they're extremely mobile. Like if I were to run away, they'll be like right behind me and they'll grab me or knock me down or just stun me because we move unprotected. So once you get rid of those classes, ninjas, Kunos, I don't have an issue with. Wusas, I don't have an issue with. Megus, I don't have an issue with. As funny as it is, right? I don't have an issue with Megus. Maybe it's because people are still learning the class. Rangers and archers, I love fighting them. They're the squishiest. So even with the class mods, they still die to like a combo or two of mine, which is fun. After the DK got semi nerfed, they're fun. Draconias are fun. The reason being is when they use their PA ability and fully heal, they are immobile, and we can apply our strongest debuff in the game on them with Misty Haze. So by the time their PA is over, I get to apply the strongest debuff in the game freely to them, and they'll just get deleted afterwards. But yeah, Corsair's fun to play with, when you're going against them. But yeah, every other class that I didn't mention, other than the Striker, Mystic, Berserker, Tamer, Musas, and Q block class, which is like good half of the classes. Yeah, they're not fun, and that's just solo, right? But in group content, I don't care who you fight. I don't care if it's a Mystic or a Striker or a Zerker. I don't care. Like none of them make me shudder in group, because I would always play around the person that I know is going to just dominate, right? It goes down to like knowing your teammates at that point.
Okay. And then moving past that, we got matchups. The most important question: what is your favorite costume?
My favorite costume, it's the Gatherer's outfit. The Gatherer's outfit was my first costume. I just thought it kind of shows like what the Shai is. You're just there. You're going around with the Curious Gathered outfit. It has all these bells and whistles, these trinkets and everything like that. And it has fingerless gloves. Like that's like the coolest, I think, one of the coolest like attire in like any game, right? The fingerless gloves is like, dude, this guy is serious, or this person is serious, right? But all the bells and whistles and trinkets, it shows that, hey, you know what? I'm an explorer. I want to venture the world. I want to see what the world has to offer. That is my favorite outfit. I mean, of course, there's a lot of new outfits that came out. that came out uh like recently that were like super cool, like the Selenar and everything, like and Selenar and like the what is the new the Tiger Emissary? Yeah, the Tiger Emissary. Those are pretty cool. Um, but if I were to go to any like if you were watching a stream, it's always a Curious Gatherer. The only other time where I broke that thing about me when I would wear my gear was when I was in AOA, where I wore the shootad. Right, I wore a shootad with the summer like scuba mask thing. Kind of it made you look like a badass like assassin type thing. So uh, that's the only other time I would wear other costumes. I won't wear anything else. Like even like for ganking, I won't wear Treant or any of the desert um, camouflage gear.
All right, awesome. All right, well, thank you for interviewing with me again. If you would like to watch more content or if you would like to watch them live on Twitch, you can catch Wutaru at twitch.tv/Wutaru_NA every Tuesday and Thursday at 8 p.m. to 3 a.m. PST, and also catch them on bonus days on Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. I also have their Twitter linked below in the description. So thank you again, Wutaru, for interviewing with me today. I hope you had fun with it.
I did. Thank you very much for having me on here. And of course, if you guys have any questions, do ask me on stream. I don't mind if it's a new question or if you're a veteran and you have any questions about Shies or anything or about the game. Yeah, just hit me up.
Awesome. Thank you once again. Thank you to both Azminek and Wootaru for joining me in the interviews. I hope that you both enjoyed it. And I will be posting their social medias down below if you would like to check out their future content. Otherwise, I stream every Friday at 11:15 EST for the Nodewar podcast. I host PvP events and stream sporadically throughout the week. And if you would like to catch me live on Twitch, you can follow me at twitch.tv/Johnny5. If you would like to see the rest of the interviews for each class and spec as they are released, make sure to subscribe below on YouTube. Again, thank you for watching, and I hope to see all of you next time.